We have quorum.
All right.
Welcome, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. And first on the agenda is, I'm pulling it up right here too. So assuming it's minutes from the March 29th meeting, assuming everyone has read them. Is there a motion to approve last month's minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. You got that, Scott?
Got it. Move a little slow. I got it.
All right. First order of business is the Yonder Hill Farm, and two of the King brothers here are here with representation. So Scott, you go ahead and present. We'll discuss, and just raise your hand or anything if you've got a question, or if we have a question for you, we'll let you guys know.
You're welcome to come up to the table. There's plenty of room.
Yeah, wherever you're most comfortable.
All right.
Middle school dance.
All right. So this is a new proposal for a donated conservation easement on 95 acres. And I'll show you the location in just a moment. Due to the number of parcels on the property and the mixed zoning, it's mostly RA zoning, but some R1 zoning. So there's a lot of development potential on this property. So about 31 potential dwellings will be eliminated by this. Just to give you an idea of the location, there's Half Mile Branch Road and Jarman's Gap. So at this northwest corner of the intersection is this property. And there's, as you can see, the existing easement. I believe it's a VOF easement across the road on the King family property. And there's another easement held by this body a little ways to the west. So this map shows the outline of the 95-acre area of the property that would be under the easement, and then you can see there are proposed 75-foot riparian buffers. We started at 35. The donors suggested they might want to go 75, so this is what we're showing. And this map shows I should say here, this property is entirely in the rural areas in the comp plan, even though the northeastern 10 acres or so is zoned R1 for some reason. But this crosshatch here is shown near the edge of the development area. So this is entirely in the rural areas under the comp plan designation. So there's an existing small dwelling here. So for that, and then for two future dwellings, there are locations shown here for building envelopes. So I've got some pictures here. This is from up on the property looking southeast-ish, back toward King Family Vineyards and the Crozet development area. This area that's pointed out in the yellow here, this hillside, is this property as seen from the King Family Vineyards area. So
Looking down from what?
sorry?
Looking down from what?
This is looking across from the public area of King Family Vineyards, across Jarman's Gap Road, which is this line of trees here. And then the property we're discussing is this one on the hill. So this area down on the flatter area is part of the historic district. The property we're talking about today is not, but it's highly visible from that historic district. This is the Jarman's Gap Road frontage. There's some views the owners provided from that hillside, where it's currently being converted into grape production facing south. All right, so property is located in the basin of the South Fork Ravana Reservoir. Development restrictions and riparian buffers to help support water quality in that reservoir's watershed. Of the 95 acres, about 90.5 are designated as important for agriculture in the comprehensive plan. There's about 1,100 feet of shared boundary with that existing easement on the other side of Jarman's Gap Road. And again, this is adjacent to, but not in the Greenwood Afton Historic District, but given its topography, it's highly visible from that district and help to protect its character. The proposed term would include no subdivision, 2 new dwellings to an aggregate of 10,000 square feet. And then there's that 1,100 square foot existing dwelling that could remain but not be replaced. Most of the other structure terms are standard, although there would be permission for 1 farm building up to 10,000 square feet instead of the usual 4,500. And there would be a 250-foot setback from Jarman's Gap Road for everything over 500 square feet. The donors have requested that the usual 1% impervious cap be bumped up to 1.25%, which is about 1.2 acres. Most of the rest of the terms are standard. There is an existing 50-foot access easement across the property, which would be held to remain as a private access and not dedicated as a public road. And again, there are 75-foot riparian buffers on those streams. They are intermittent. Well, I think they're mapped as intermittent streams, but on the ground experience suggests they're not. That's what I have. I know the owners and their representatives are here to add some more and answer any questions. Of course, I can answer any
2
questions.
new dwellings are 2 each at 10,000 or?
No, it's a total of
together?
10,000 for the 2.
Or could be
Or
one.
one. Yeah, 1 or 2 up to 10,000.
And it's for the 2 out of the 3, and then the third one is not within the aggregate thing.
Right.
Might be a little easier if you like.
Well, it's, I mean, given that the other ones are, the designs are not known yet, they don't exist yet, there's not even a proposal for them, or that 1,166-foot house is already there and has been for a long time, so
Is it lived in and livable?
as far as I know it is.
Hmm.
As far as I know.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool, okay.
Could you go back to the map?
Yeah, this one,
That one. Where's King Family Vineyard?
Green on the bottom.
yeah, it's down there.
Here.
Yep.
What's
Where am I?
here?
Where am I most been?
Is this in the growth area? Yes, sir.
The crosshatch
This
is
is
the
the
development
growth
area.
The cross patch is the growth area.
Yes.
So Scott, the stream is, did I hear you say that that was an intermittent stream or a flowing?
I'll have to go back and check. If I remember correctly, I think they're mapped by USGS as intermittent, but I don't think they actually are. From what we talked about when we were out on site, it sounds like they're
And the
reliably
s-
perennial.
And the 75-foot stream buffer came from the landowners? Okay. And so what happens, does it just sort of disappear or dry out on the lower left-hand side? What does it do there?
Here,
It looks like the topography flows down, so,
it does, but there's no stream in there.
well, but there's sort of 2 forks. Is that a spring or something that feeds the rest of it?
I don't know if there may be a spring there. Again, these folks may know. This other fork, the right fork, actually comes from the other side of the tracks.
And the access easement is where on the property?
It's this existing Yonder Hill Farm road. It actually comes all the way up to there.
Can you go back to the GIS, the aerial basement? No, it showed the building sites.
Oh, sorry.
So I got to go out there and look at it too, and it's where those building sites are. they're lower elevation and they're tucked back and they're barely visible. All set.
This one up here is right next to, it kind of meshes into the pattern of large lots on this side. So it just sort of continues what's already out there. And then this is all very separate back here. Far from the road.
Do we know what the location of the 10,000 square foot two dwellings might be?
No, except to say it would be outside that 250-foot setback. German's Gap.
They're in envelopes, those two houses? Did you
That's what
say?
this is with this and this.
Are those envelopes? They look
Yeah.
like buildings.
No, they're envelopes.
They're square
They're
envelopes.
just white rectangles.
Okay.
Oh, they are.
Ends in them.
And what is that
Rectangular.
triangle that comes in?
That's just a separate property. It belongs to somebody else.
That's a
Yeah.
problem.
I think the previous owners maybe sold that to that person.
But they retained it, correct? Like,
Yes, so that was the previous owner, Christine Charters. So she kept a parcel and there's a cottage similar in size to the existing structure on yonder. So, and she is a occasional weekend visitor.
And what's the acreage of that little inset?
1.5 if I'm remembering.
Just approximately, yeah.
We also have first right of refusal.
Yeah, I would think.
That'll be hopefully just swept into the existing, hopefully easement.
Hopefully it'll be in the easement
Yeah.
at some point, so.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Seems
You
straightforward.
had said about the,
Yeah.
the existing house that it could be, what did you say? It could remain but not be replaced? You really want to say it can't be replaced? I mean, that's kind of a time bomb when it comes to, I mean, I remember having a classic discussion with an architect on a property not too far from here, where he said, where it couldn't be replaced. And he said, well, that's fine. I'm going to use one board from the old house. And he was willing to go to court about it and make a big fuss up. So I'm not sure that that provision, as they say, if the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
it might give you guys a little more latitude.
Sure.
That's
Sorry.
not right.
Yeah.
We just spent a decent amount of money fixing it up, so I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. And it's, we're happy with the size and have somebody living there now. So, no,
If it burned down, they would use the insurance to build in one of the other locations. Is the thought.
Now, we won't tell the insurance company. This is being recorded, I'm sure.
Right,
That's
that's on record now.
You don't have to replace it.
Anyway, I mean, I just think for future peace and quiet enjoyment of the easement, you might want to just not bother with that.
I don't have any strong feelings on it.
The easiest really to lump all those square footages into one and say, 3 dwellings, unless there's some reason why you really need to keep the existing one ratcheted down, just say 3 dwellings, whatever it would be, 11.5 or something like that,
Your counsel is that going forward, or you would like to change the language in this particular case?
I was suggesting in this particular case, it would be just as well not to include that. And I haven't seen the deed, I was just looking at the summary. And I think it just tends to produce problems over time.
What are your thoughts on that, Lee?
It's fine with us.
And it's more
Yeah.
relaxed for you.
So we're looking at amending the proposal to 3 dwellings, 12,000 square feet aggregate.
Would be
And
10
that's what
plus the
makes, what do
11.
you think, Lee?
No, I think that makes sense. It's easier to monitor, it's easier to.
I mean, inevitably, as soon as we lock the thing up, somebody's gonna
Sure.
want a kitchen or a bathroom
Yeah,
or
that's
something on
fine.
that little house.
Right.
And it's gonna be 200 feet above
Yes.
Yeah.
And we had to come back and say, can we use 500 of these 10,000 square feet on
Yeah,
this
and if it's
house?
written in the deed that
Right.
it absolutely can't be.
Right.
You put us in an awkward position, you know?
So I took Sherry's motion to be 3 dwellings, counting the existing one, and a total aggregate finished above ground living space of 12,000 square feet. That was your,
I think what she said was 10,000 plus the existing square
Which would
footage.
be
She-
11 too.
well, let's see what she
He-
said, because I
He
heard her say
rounded it up, but
12.
that's fine with me.
Rounding up is a good idea because the sheriff said something.
Yeah.
that needed catching.
The flexibility.
I noticed it, but I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I think this is a great easement.
Yeah, I think it's straightforward.
Would you like a motion?
Is there any more discussion?
So
It's
moved,
pretty
so
straightforward.
seconded.
So moved, I guess your opportunity to add anything has just
Whatever you
been passed.
want. Put me in for whichever one you want.
All right,
Is there a second?
the Sherry moved in,
I'll second.
Dr. Moses seconded it. With the made amendments, correct? All right, all in favor? Contrary minded? All right, the ayes have it.
One thing it's a great evening, thank you all very much.
Yeah,
Um,
this is fantastic.
I apologize, I'm a tree geek, and in the picture, it looks like there are some form of Bradford pears or calorie pears on the fence line, which are horribly invasive species. So the tree man in me says, if you get out there with a chainsaw, that we would be
Take care of
really
that.
appreciative.
Wouldn't hurt your feelings.
They're spreading everywhere.
They are very aware.
But thank you, very solid.
Just one.
Please return with another one or two.
Actually, what was not pictured in the easement photo, all the green patches, our neighbor to the west, Randy Calderon, is looking to put his 88 plus 50 acres into easement as
Yeah, I
well.
don't know, that.
So there'll be another,
Close to 200 acres, I believe.
Which would adjoin your property.
which would adjoin us and
On the
Yonder
west
Hill
side.
as well. So there's gonna be another one in very soon.
It's west of Roseland Farm and then southwest of Yonder.
And adjoins Shamrock Farm, which is in easement.
I think I looked at that with your dad a long time ago.
Roseland?
The one behind Roseland that was like a 50-acre,
Greenlee and
yeah. So
Oh,
I
right.
thought it was gonna happen, but it never quite did.
So James will be presenting that proposal probably next month. I think I've already been in.
Okay. Yeah, nudge your neighbors along,
we will.
spread the word. Thank you all very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. New business, the safe harbor conversation, do we need to?
Lee, do you wanna
Did we
wait for
skip
the safe
over-
harbor conversation?
Did we skip
You
over
gotta go.
2 other
Okay.
business?
All right.
Yeah, we
Other
can,
matters, I mean.
we can skip, right, is there any new
No
business?
comment? No public comment?
All right,
Uh,
no new business, any old business?
the new business is safe harbor.
Right,
Yeah,
hopefully,
You want to talk about that?
yeah,
Sherry,
that's,
so we only have only one of our easements it applies to?
Yeah, and that was Lee's, and I spoke to him. So I think everyone knows that, that the IRS issued a new notice based upon the Secure 2.0 Act of 2022, which requires changes to, ultimately to deed language, speaks to the extinguishment clause and to the boundary line adjustment clause. The extinguishment clause, as they put it forth, I think our template language, in my view, covers all that already. I don't think there's anything real monumental about that. However, going forward, to be safe, I'm just going to include that language in the deeds. So we'll just follow that language.
yeah, I was thinking that, and I didn't have a chance to go back and look, that the county templates have boundary line adjustment language in them,
Yeah, that bothered me more
and I think
because
that's.
that has to come out, I believe.
Yeah, and it's really too bad. And I know we had a discussion, Peter and I particularly some years ago, about whether it was wise. VOF had sort of just started to step gently to the right on the issue and was taking it out, just simply taking the boundary line adjustment language out. And it's really advantageous to landowners to have it in,
Yeah,
although it's a pain from a procedural point of view to do it correctly. But now I think it's an open red flag, and having issued this guidance, I
think it
would
has,
suspect they're gonna be trolling for deeds that retain it.
I don't think it'll be allowed.
what's the impetus behind
Well, I don't know.
So Richie, can you give us a little background, because I'm not familiar with this ruling, and what's the overview in terms of extinguishment and probably, and I think I know on boundary line adjustments, but if you could just give us the 1-2, please.
Again, extinguishment clause, so the law required that the IRS put out some new safe harbor deed language, and particularly to extinguishment clauses and to the boundary line adjustment clauses. And in the past, there had been a recent tax court case that addressed the extinguishment clause, so we have been following that pretty closely. And this doesn't really deviate from that too much. So again, that's not much of a concern.
So the extinguishment clause is basically if this easement were to be extinguished, here are the requirements and the financial covenants
Yeah,
associated.
it
Payments,
basically
yeah.
sets up what had happened to the proceeds.
And then the how you determine the ratios, that sort of thing. And again, several years back, there was a case that came out of tax court, and it spoke to that. And so we've been following that, and this again is language. I mean, my view is to just copy the language and use that language going forward. Ours isn't precisely the same, but all the conditions are met. Again, I don't think that's an issue. Again, the boundary line adjustments, the only way they will permit a boundary line adjustments if there's a judicial proceeding, if it's a contested judicial proceeding, and the issue has to be particularly regarding the location of the boundary line. So other than that, there'll be no boundary line adjustment.
Like a boundary dispute with a neighbor type of thing. If a
Yeah, I
neighbor-
mean, as to whether it's on the creek or whether it's above the creek.
Yeah, right, if the
Like a
neighbor
record
sues you,
possession.
Something like that.
that wanted to be
But
the.
the way I read it is our deeds permit, some, not all of them, but we can have external boundary line adjustments and we can have internal boundary line adjustments. And I'm not sure how we can do that going forward. Well, I guess we could do it, but whether they get dinged by the IRS, that's a different story. I mean, our template language is gonna follow this going forward.
But these are for new easements, obviously, not.
They're for easements, so that's where Lee comes into play. They're for easements that were recorded after December 29th of 2022, and his was recorded on December 30th.
Happens a lot.
Good thing he procrastinated. Where are you? I couldn't find the reference to the effective date, because I don't think we have too many that are at risk, but certainly this body has a lot that were at risk if you go back 3 years.
Well, the effective date is when it's signed into law.
Okay, so they can't recapture in, 21 and 20, you don't think?
No, I went into the actual amendment, which is extremely difficult to read because they don't put the whole act out there. They just line by
Bits and
line what
pieces.
changes they make. And this is pretty clear that it's for those that are recorded after the effective date. That's in the statute. And the statute doesn't indicate what the effective date is because that's when it's signed, but the IRS says it was December 29th. And then there's a window. So the IRS had 120 days to issue their language.
Yeah, they were they kept saying over and over when the window was, but they didn't say when the window opened, that you didn't have to go back 3 years, for example.
Oh, I thought that in the notice it said December 29th was the effective date.
Yeah, okay, the
it's
thing
not
I pulled, I
retroactive.
couldn't find it.
What's that?
It's not retroactive.
No, and then looking at the actual amendments, it doesn't say it's retroactive. It's from the effective date. And so they had 120 days to issue the notice, and then after the notice is published, there's 90-day window to make your amendments. So, but I mean, because of the effective date and then the issuing of the notice, there shouldn't be that many deeds that, it's not, like you said, if you have to go back 3 years, that's a nightmare. If you only have to go back, I don't know where are we now in April? If you only have to go back 3.5 months, 3 months, you shouldn't be. So,
That one in December that was.
yeah, and so
effective
Lee
is the
had
last one we did.
yeah, we've only had one recorded since December 29th.
Oh, wow, that's good.
And that's Lee's. And so I spoke to him today. What I do want to do is I have prepared a motion. I don't know, I can circulate, but essentially it's a motion that would allow Jay to accept an amendment to the deed of gift of easement under the Monty Manning, something like that.
Native American term.
If the amendment follows the safe harbor deed language. So I have that motion on.
So made.
For a second,
Second,
Dispense with the formalities.
Discussion. all in favor?
You would want to read that.
So,
The record will reflect that it was read.
So at a subsequent time, would you bring us back, template update? I mean, it seems to me our choice is either to be completely silent on amendments or on BLAs, or to put in the language that says only in the case of judicial proceeding, which actually locks you down to not doing anything 10 years later after all the tax benefits are gone.
I think the second option is better going forward.
Okay.
I would rather put it in there and have a donor's attorney say, no, we want to take it out.
Okay.
Whether
Right.
we would approve that or not, I don't know the answer, but we're not, I don't know if we're in the business of preventing stupid, but maybe we are, I don't know. But the IRS has made it clear this is the language that they want, so going forward, I think it should be in there. In a bigger picture, I acknowledge that we're probably overdue for looking at and revising the template. So that's a project to be done.
feels like we just did
If you need any action from us.
It took 3 years the last time, that's why.
Oh.
That's how I retired.
It
as
took 3
chairman.
years?
You're speaking of ill things, Richie.
Okay, well,
If you need an action item from us, just let us know so that we
Yeah.
can.
no, I
Fix that in
need,
the
I
future.
need to get in there and revise it and put, the suggested changes based upon changes in the laws and things and our practices and bring those to you in a red line version.
Yeah, that'd
And
be
then
great.
take it from there. That's my idea. And
Just be aware of any that are in process that started, that were
again,
drafted.
we only have one and I think it's Lee's.
Well,
I think
I guess my question is for when James and I are working on new proposals. We often get proposals that say, I've got 300 acres and I want to be able to divide that in 2 or 3. Is that no longer possible?
So I think the answer from my point of view is that if they want to adjust their boundary lines, they need to do it before they come here and put it under easement.
So
But
they
can-
need to do subdivision first and then just walk it down.
Yes, and because I think it's locked down. So unless the law changes, it's locked down unless there's a dispute over the location.
Yeah, it seems like if there's a large parcel that doesn't have any boundary lines in it, and they say that they can divide,
That's rarely the case.
right?
It happens, but if it's a large property, there's usually 2 or 3 parcels, at least sometimes a lot more.
Well, it does have the positive effect of essentially requiring a building it.
Yeah.
Or at least a building location.
So what about like in the case of this property where there's that little triangle sliver that's there? That if they bought that and folded it in,
Amend the deed to add that in.
we just amend the deed to add that in. And then with those,
That's not the kind of boundary line adjustment they're
Would be a
concerned
separate
about.
easement.
right, it'd be,
entirely.
or would it be a separate easement entirely? That's where I was headed with that.
It's not really justifiable on its
And I
own.
guess that you'd have a slight hassle because there's already an existing house that
Yeah.
usually
1.5 acres.
you'd have to deal with that.
Instead of just folding it in.
What was it, a
You have an
1.5
existing house
acre
and no
parcel?
envelope,
Yeah.
and it takes up a house right, and then you can't build the dream house, and it might be better to leave it where God's
Just to
like
leave it,
it.
leave it
Right,
alone.
They could purchase it and keep it, but maybe not expect the easement.
Scott, what's in the pipeline?
How many have we got? I'm gonna say 5 or 6 new proposals that we're currently working on. I am, sorry, I can't pull them up
So they're,
on the fly, but
the market is not cooled for reservations.
yeah, no, we're still, I mean, it's early in the year, so this is usually a slow time, but we've definitely got some. To be fair, we've got a couple of leftover proposals from late last year when I was in the middle of changing jobs and James wasn't here yet, and we didn't have time to work on them, but we're catching up now.
Is there any old business? This sweet, yes.
There has been advertising for justice property.
Monitoring is going on there.
One, roughly a third of it sold all to one owner. I haven't seen anything about the rest of it transferring yet.
An end user owner or a developer?
I don't really know.
Was this at auction?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was an auction on the whole thing, and I think only one piece sold.
It was a strange auction too.
It's a strange.
So is there advertising to sell additional parcels?
Well, just to break it into, I think it's allowed to go into up to 3 separate ownerships across the entire thing, and somebody bought one chunk.
The advertising was create your own family compound.
I did that, but it's about the size of this table.
Well, he had, what did he have? He had 10 dwellings. That was the limit. There was a limit on the number of dwellings that could be built. How they get divvied up, I don't recall precisely, but.
We also had appearance provisions and location provisions, so they wouldn't be within the view shed.
The Monticello view shed.
And that would be the major concern.
We haven't seen any building permits or
Do you know
anything
who's
like that.
advertising it?
No, it wasn't a name I recognized.
Right.
I thought you had attended, did you attend the auction? Someone did.
It was in
I didn't.
one of
I
the
think Rex.
giveaway real estate magazines.
I'll look it up, and that might be worth a call to the realtor to let them know. Because I've shown a piece of property and the realtor had no idea it was their reason. It was one of ours. I was like, this is real, I know this place. All right, well, thank you all very much. This is great. More land protected.
Thank you all.
And in record time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good.
Good to see you, madam.
Nice to see you. I spoke to Barbie this afternoon, and she said hello.
Yes.
Submarine.
Look at these.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you, Peter. Take care, give me a call sometime.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
It's always good.
You all.
Yeah, and I happen to go out there because those guys are friends of mine, friends of friends, and they invite